Coming up on today's show, Tamara is still not there as we dive into The Strangers, Chapter 2. Stay tuned.
Who are they? Why are they doing this?
Does there have to be a why?
Welcome, folks, to the Morgue, where we dissect the latest and greatest in the world of entertainment. And I am your host, Arturo Padilla, and with me always is Mr. Nick Valdez. Tex, what is up, buddy? How are you?
Man, howdy everybody, howdy Arturo. I'm really excited to talk about The Strangers Chapter 2. I guess, right, like setting the table a little bit, right? Before we even get into this review here, it's okay. So Strangers Chapter 1, we have an episode of the Morgue where we reviewed Chapter 1, and please go check out our YouTube or through the podcast feed to figure. I'd like to seek it out, but like we both pretty much ended up on the same.
We ended up on the same page that the movie, was and felt very unnecessary because it was frame for frame The Strangers, the original one from the early 2000s. So we were like, well, why are we even here? And why are they asking us to stay tuned for the next chapter?
Yeah, right. It's like what a shot to call. Like I think during that episode, I think we were still like the gall.
How dare you?
Yeah, it's like how
chapter
dare you?
2 and chapter 1 was garbage.
Yeah, it's like how dare you announce a trilogy in the first place, right? It's like there's no way you have 3 movies in this, and then especially because that first one was basically a remake of that original, but worse, right? Like I think. In some ways it had it be of like, maybe in some ways it was a little more technically better, and in some ways it did like some of the tension stuff better, right?
It had a better cat and mouse situation going on, which I do have to admit, it was better there because they elongated the chase scene in the woods, but it was still pretty much The Strangers. There was nothing new about it. There was nothing really worth the trip to the theater, and that's what we spoke about when when that one came out last year, I believe it was. And with this one though, our feelings are a little different, right, Tex?
Yeah, like spoiler alert for that, for our reaction to it, but like honestly, like I was so surprised by going in, because already the lowest of standards. Like I'm like, okay, like I'm going in with like, all right, if you beat part 1, it's impressive in my eyes, right? I think you were in the same boat of just like,
correct,
it's got to be just better than part 1. That was the bare minimum, and I can say this from my perspective that like I think it was. Before even getting into like talking about it, giving our full opinions, like I was just like kind of like, wow, okay, there's a movie here. And it's like you kind of get right into it, and it's like, oh, okay, see you had to. It was almost like that first one was a necessary evil, right? Of like
exactly. You had to eat vegetables, like we say, right? With the first one, as I mentioned previously, it was very similar to the original Strangers movie. With chapter 2, we continue the story, right? We get more of the Strangers. So why I dug it was because we had something new, something fresh going on in this universe. And just before we completely, break this down spoiler free for you guys, this movie continues pretty much after the attack. Our protagonist is in the hospital. She wakes up. She finds out that, she did survive the attack, but her fiance did not. And we go from there. And the news of her survival spread to the town. And from there, we get another cat and mouse game, a la Stranger style.
This is pretty much phase 2 of like, so going off of that, like just getting into it. This I appreciated that it took place immediately after that first one.
Same.
I think it was a very smart move. There are very few sequels that go that route, right? Of like going, okay, like I think the most recent example we have is maybe like Halloween Kills, right? Of like, oh, it took place right after they set fire to the house, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, okay, it's right after that, and I think that I like that idea of like, oh, a trilogy taking place over the course of a single night or like a single week.
Yeah.
And from that, it kind of carries that energy basically through the first half of the movie. Like through the first half is like, okay, it takes what you liked of that first one and just gives you more of that. And there's no like it really cuts the fat. It's like,
Yes.
okay, she finds out she's alive, and then stuff goes haywire, like kind of immediately.
Yeah, I really dug that. They throw you right into it, as Tex mentioned, and you're back in the saddle with this protagonist. There really is no stop to it in terms of the narrative, right? There is a big slowdown in the
Yes.
second act, which drastically slows everything down. I think too much, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's really my biggest gripe in this movie is that this lull happens in the middle of the movie where yes, we're still being chased around, but then tension wise, it has slowed down. So you feel that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
but
because that was the issue with the first one too, right? Like the first one like had that issue of just pacing. And it was like while you were in the thick of the cat and mouse stuff, you're like, oh, this is great. There's some good stuff here. There's good tricks with like the mirror, and there's good stuff there. But then occasionally there's moments where they kind of have to like develop the story and characters. And in those
yeah,
and in those moments, you're like, oh, this is weaker than the action, right? But in here, that stands out more because the fact that it starts out immediately and it starts out with so much action, it's kind of like a double-edged sword in that, like, yeah, you get the real fast pace, you're kind of thrown into it immediately.
yeah,
But then when it does start to be like, okay, now we kind of have to now we have to tell a story, it's like, oh, that's when you feel that slowdown, right? It's like,
yes,
oh,
yeah,
okay,
exactly.
here are a bunch of characters who may or may not be new. I kind of don't remember people from from chapter one, so that's my
Yeah,
thing.
a lot of
I'm
the
like,
faces looked exactly the same, but also that is also a great point though because they play on that in this movie, and they play on the fact that she doesn't know who to trust, obviously, because she is still reeling from this traumatic experience, and she's trying to figure out what the hell she's gonna do to get out of this mess, right? But what I have to add is all this said about us picking about the pacing, it still tells a decent story, a better story than I expected, to be honest. So this is why I kind of just fell into it. Slow pace aside, I was just in it. I really liked the fact that the intensity was also really amped up with our killers.
right,
And it reminds me a lot of Strangers Pray at Night, where they amped up the intensity and the action after a slow Strangers movie with Liv Tyler, right?
right,
So I really like the fact that they decided to just kind of turn this up a notch. And there's an intensity, as I mentioned, but also there's a sense of urgency with our antagonist here because it's like, hey, this one survived and she wasn't supposed to. We have to take care of this problem. And you feel that coming from the antagonist. Like you feel the urgency, you feel them wanting to take care of the problem as soon as possible. And with that, you get a lot of violence coming from them. And it's not just them knocking on doors and invading houses anymore, right?
yeah,
We have them out and about in the environment doing what they do.
yeah, yes, but like that's also one of my qualms, Arturo, where it's like, yes, there's a higher body count, which is like always appreciated and kind of like necessary for a horror sequel, right? Where it's like, yeah, it's like, you kind of have to have more kills in the first one than like other than what's the point, right? Like if
Yes.
you can't have less death in a horror sequel. That's like rule one, right? You just no, because then people will be like, well, why did you make it, right? So like part two, yes, higher body count because there are just more people. Because Madeline Petch, who who's the protagonist here, she, there's this cool, like, it basically starts out in the hospital bed, and like you get a whole chase through the hospital, which is like
Mhm.
awesome. But there are people in the hospital, so it's like, oh, okay,
Yes.
it's not like before where she's limited to the cabin and it's just her and her fiance that
Yeah.
are like the targets, right? It's like, no, there are people around, and people naturally got to get killed in order to, like, they move things along. And
Yeah,
so
they got in the way and they had to kind of like, it's like, hey, when you're writing the story, they're like, what's gonna happen if somebody sees these people, you know?
yeah, because
And they're like,
that's
oh, I guess we're gonna have to kill them.
yeah, and that's what raises the stakes pretty much in this one. It's like, okay, now she's running through the town rather than just her cabin. And like, but the other hand of this is like, while there's a higher body count, we really don't see the kills on screen. It's
Yeah.
weirdly like, that's why, for as much as I agree with Arturo about the intensity, it's lacking that aggression. Like, it's lacking that teeth when it comes
The
to
ruthless
actually,
aggression.
yeah, like, it's not following through with the promise of it, right? And that
Yeah,
was
it's not
that was
following through with the intensity I mentioned, which Tex
yeah,
is absolutely right about that. That's one thing that I kind of pushed to the back of my brain there because it was just kind of one of those expectation things, especially
yeah,
with all the random kills. There are random kills
yes,
in this movie where I questioned, I'm like, was that really necessary?
yeah. It's like, oh, did
You
you
know,
need to kill
yeah.
that guy? But
Yeah,
but
exactly.
then it's like,
I'm like, damn, that's really brutal. Did he really deserve that?
and
Um,
even then, it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
does
and
it
then
matter, right?
yeah,
Because it gets to
exactly.
nothing.
But in terms of that, like I had to like completely suspend my disbelief, in terms
Yeah,
of just kind of just to go with the narrative, just
yeah,
to kind
and
of follow along this story. I was like, okay, cool. We're getting a little crazy here, but like again, to the point that Tex was making, a lot of the kills happen off screen. What we
yeah,
see is usually the aftermath or them,
yes.
continuing
Because
a
as
stab
she's
or something.
yeah, as she's running, she like sees dead bodies, and it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's a cool idea, right? It's cool in concept, and you're like, oh, okay, they're leaving a trail of bodies behind them as they chase her,
Yeah.
and but like, it gets to that unnecessary level that Arturo say, because it's like, well, why do it if you're not going to show it? And you're just going to see a body, then it's like, well, why did that guy deserve to die?
Yeah.
If like, then what's the point, right? And so that's also what Arturo was also saying. It's like, oh, there's a lot of that you kind of have to forgive to like enjoy that part of the story, but
Yes.
we shouldn't have to, right? It's like, oh, we shouldn't have to be sitting there being like, oh, I forgive you, Strangers Chapter 2, because you're telling an awesome cat and mouse game, which it sucks because that cat and mouse game is legitimately awesome. Like,
Yeah.
because like the movie, it's like that first half especially is just like one full chase scene, and there are lulls in it, there are like things, but like, when it's just the chase and when you're focused on just her trying to run and survive and make it through all these locations in town to like run away from them, it's good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because you're,
Agreed.
as a protagonist, you're seeing her evolve, right? Like, you're seeing her, like, you're seeing the final girl, quote unquote, take shape of like, okay, she's making
Yeah.
smarter choices because she's been through this already. And that experience comes through, and it's what you want to see in a sequel. But like, it's just missing that aggression, it's missing that bite. And I don't know, like, it depends on if you like what they put in favor of that, right? It's like, I guess, without even getting too much into that, I think they overestimate how much we care about the strangers
That's the
themselves.
thing. Like that's like the thing too, as well. As you were talking, I wanted to make a point that this strangers universe, like we don't know exactly what to expect out of it,
Right.
So they have the liberty to just kind of do this and do that and off whoever. But like as we get more into the strangers universe, because it is, chapter two, it's a story they're trying to tell here. They show off that that this isn't the first time it's happened. This has happened before. Then that brings up questions in terms of like, if you really want to be nitpicky, it brings up questions like, okay, if this has happened before. They've obviously been very careful, but now they're getting very careless because of this one person. But my question is, why didn't you do the job the first time around? Why didn't you make sure that she was dead? So like a lot of questions start coming up when you really want to break down the story.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
logic falls apart, right?
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like,
it does fall apart, but this is why I think it did a good job in keeping us engaged with the chase. Because when it
yes.
does slow down, you're like thinking about, but wait a minute, how can this happen? Or why did this happen? But then they start picking things up a little bit, and you're like, oh, never mind. Let me just continue,
Yeah,
along with the protagonist.
yeah, because she has a couple of extended conversations with a dude who's like, oh, is he potentially one of the strangers, right? Is he potentially one, right? But it's also like, do we need this? It's like,
I agree. I did not like that red herring at all.
yeah,
Like,
because it's
because
like,
it was so, like, in your face. Just to give you guys some context, it's the dude in the trailer you guys seen in the
yes,
commercial that has the happy face tattoo on his neck, right? So
yes,
his character is just off. I don't know what they were trying to accomplish with that character. It didn't really serve much, but then
yeah,
again, like, we don't know what happens with him,
right,
because we lose track of him as the story progresses. But that does happen a lot in this movie. There are characters where you're like, why are we doing this here? She could just
yeah.
easily just broken into an empty cabin instead of having to deal with people in the cabin. But
It's
again, it's one of those
it's
things, you got
yeah,
to deal with it.
because that's the thing. It's like there's a lot of that it asks you to kind of forgive and forget, right?
Yep.
Like and that's the trouble with this trilogy now. Like it really is going to be the trouble of like sticking the landing, because it when it starts asking you to like approach it with some kind of logic that like people would have, right? It's like, oh, like so like, okay, this isn't a spoiler because it's like in the beginning of the movie, so I'll just kind of dance around it a little bit. But it's like, oh, okay, so when her, I guess it's her sister or like her mother or somebody finds out she's hurt, and the whole thing is like
Her
she
sister.
needs to, okay, yeah, so she needs to make it towards a certain time because an ambulance is coming from Portland to come and pick her up in the small town. And like that's the first thing where you're immediately like, oh, okay, that's really weird,
It
right? That they're,
doesn't work that way,
yeah, like, oh, okay, that they're paying for like a private ambulance to come and pick her up. I know, I'm sure like that like works somewhere. I know, like there's
Oh,
probably
there's
like
transports. No, for sure. Like you can
yeah,
transport patients from one hospital to another, but though when you really want to get technical and realistic about it, like the way things unfold really don't meet the level of reality that you that you'd expect or want
yeah,
from a movie.
because
Yeah.
like the spoiler from that is like the EMT guy ends up having to go get gas, and it's like, oh, I don't think I've ever seen an
I
ambulance
was gonna,
get gas,
yes,
let alone
I
like,
said the same thing. I'm like, shouldn't he have checked his gas before he made the trip? Because it's not like he's a taxi service. He's
yeah,
literally going to pick up this patient. So you should know how much gas you need. And also like asking directions, like what? You
and
should.
also yeah, and then on top of that, it's like, where are you going, right? It's not
Oh
like, oh,
man.
where is the, he didn't ask like, oh, where is the hospital or something. He asked for like a specific address that she was supposed to be at, but
Yeah.
then like, see, it's like it starts getting to spoiler territory of like,
Yeah,
well,
it gets into spoilers territory and
how would
then
he know that address because she doesn't have her phone? And
yeah.
it's like, it's like,
Yeah.
how would you even know that she's not at the hospital, that something happened at the hospital that like even caused all this in the first place,
How
right?
she get
So
her phone back too on top of that because
yeah,
like,
yeah,
like
how did the people like, yes, it was just so much.
yeah.
See, and so that's the thing, it's when you start thinking about it, right? It's like, oh, okay, when you start thinking about the little things. But what Arturo is saying is that like that chase is so good, and Madeline Petch is so good,
Yeah,
like
she's really good.
as she's trying to survive, that it's like, ah, this movie's good, right? When you're in it, you're like, oh, okay, this is
Yeah.
dope, and
Yeah,
this is like
like
really in it, yeah.
I I definitely get it because they needed to get to chapter 2 to showcase Madeline Pesh's acting and character as well. And I think it was a total success. I'm definitely sold on her character and her journey in this trilogy. And I think it was very smart to of the studios to kind of like, you know what? I see your story. I see what you want to do here. Let's go ahead and get this done because this could be something interesting or special at the end of it, you know? So I really do like the fact that they continued with the same actress and the
Yeah.
same character, and you can see the development and the growth in both the character and the actress. She definitely commands the screen when she's on it, and is it's really impressive to really see her just, as Tex mentioned, see her develop into a real final girl because she was not that in chapter 1. But now here in chapter 2, she definitely put on her Laurie Strode boots and started her journey as a final girl. And I really can't wait to see what happens in chapter 3. Because they have other parts of the story development happening in here that I, for one, am not really too keen on.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I'm
that's yeah.
I'm curious to see where they go with that. I do like the fact that that led to a really good emotional beat in the third act there. So I am curious to where that goes. How we got there, I was not really a big fan of. I think it detracted a lot too from the main story, and it just kind of didn't look good too. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
not a fan of that.
that's my biggest gripe with it too. It's like it basically cuts away from
Yeah.
the main story in order to tell this other part. And this is where my critique of like, oh, you really think we care about the strangers? Like it's like, oh, you
Yeah.
really want us to like really care about them like as killers and as characters, right? But
Yes.
like that once again that kind of goes against the entire idea of the strangers in the first place. It's like, oh,
They're
they're
supposed to be strangers,
yeah,
you
that's
know?
literally in the name of the movie, right? It's like, oh, we're not supposed to know or them or care about them or anything. Like it's like that that's their whole thing. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, it's like Arturo said, it's like they kind of you get why they greenlit a trilogy, and you get why they had to make that first movie so boring. Like they made it so boring and like such a direct remake. It's because this was the story idea, right? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, this is the idea that they had, but you couldn't allow somebody to just make a sequel to the strangers, right? You couldn't just be like, oh, well, this is part two
Yeah, you
to the
couldn't.
Liv Tyler one, right? Where it's like,
You
no,
couldn't because it was so far back, you know, that you
yeah,
needed to reintroduce these characters in a different way or in a similar way in order to tell a story that they actually wanted to get to.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, and with the first look at part three, so I could spoil that where it's like, oh, okay, there's a full look at chapter three because they did film these pretty much back to back, I believe. So like, there's no release date on part three yet, but like at this point, it's I know it's like a sunken cost fallacy is like the proper term for this thing, that it's like, oh, I've sunk so much time into this that I can't back out of it now, right? And
Yeah,
that's the
yeah, we're
thing
too
where
far in. We're in too
yeah,
deep, you know?
yeah,
However you want
but
to put it, that's what's happening with this one.
right, and I'm in too deep and I'm scared of going under, right? And it's like, but at that point, at least part two was interesting, right? Like at
Yes,
least
yes.
chapters two is interesting. Like that's the one thing I will say overall. I'm just like, man, like there's something here. Whether or not it
Yes.
works, like I don't know yet. I guess we'll have to see part three, but like what is here, I had a good time.
Yeah. So that being said, Tex, you know how we do it here at the Morgue, right? You can either stay away from it, meaning do not pay for this thing at all. You can wait for it. You can wait for the movie to drop at home and you can watch it in the comfort of your own couch. And lastly, there is pay for it, meaning you get the free trial of the streamer this movie's on, or you go buy a movie ticket ASAP. Tex, I'm going to ask you first. What say you on The Strangers, Chapter 2?
Oh man, okay. I was hoping you would go first because I'm like
No, no, sir, not today.
I
I tricked you.
I know. I okay. Oh man, okay. I will say wait for it because ultimately I think and I hope the gamble on this entirely, Arturo, is that by the time chapter 3 comes out and we can go watch chapter 3 and then look at the trilogy as a whole, that this will all work out in like as a complete package. Because I think what is here is very interesting and there's a lot of good stuff. I will give it credit. I will give it a ton of credit for that
Yeah.
first half of the movie. I was really into it. I was like, yeah, this is really good. And there's even some parts where like kind of goofy, like legitimately like kind of goofy. There's some monster movie elements in here for
Yeah.
whatever, and
Yeah.
it's like but still I was still like, you
It
know
works.
what? Yeah, like
hit. Yeah.
for it's funny that those moments didn't break the logic more so than like the actual moments they were trying to like put logic together, right?
Yeah.
It's funny how that ended up working out. But I will say, yeah, just wait for it. Like, I think honestly, Arturo, I think the plan is just wait for chapter 3 to come out, and then kind of watch 1 and 2 together, and
Yeah.
then go see chapter 3 maybe, or wait for them all to come out so you can watch it all in one time. But I think the game plan is to wait for it. What do you think, Arturo?
All right. With all that said, I'm going to have to go with a very soft pay for it. Only
Ooh,
because
okay.
as a horror fan, and as we're heading right into October, this is a very good movie to start the spooky season. It was honestly better than I expected it to be. I didn't expect it to be much, especially after we got chapter 1.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this one, honestly, it kept me captivated. It kept me engaged. I did get a little bored there when it got slow, but it picked right back up and it got me right back in there with the third act. And the possibility of what can happen with these killers and what they're trying to do really got me intrigued. And as Sax mentioned, there's a post at the end, which is pretty much kind of like a teaser trailer, you can say, for chapter 3. And what I see there, I am down, man. And I'm excited about this because, as I said before, that we've never really spent time in this strangers universe, but now we actually are spending some time here, and we're starting to flesh out who these antagonists are, who these killers are.
So wait,
Um,
so you are liking the like you're starting to care about the strangers. Like, okay. No,
I'm starting to care about the strangers more
that's fair. That's fair.
in
Yeah.
a slasher form of way.
I get you.
Eh,
Like as like just in the scope of horror, right? Like you're
yes,
like as horror characters,
as an
you're like, okay.
entity that can
Yes.
like pop up anytime and make a movie, like a Jason or a Michael Myers, you know what I mean? That's what I'm very intrigued by, especially because they said that this hasn't gone on, that they've killed like 10 or 15 people or something. So there is a history of them being killers. So it is interesting to see what they are trying to do here. And maybe if it does succeed, it'd be cool to see their previous adventures. But
Yeah.
it is a soft pay for it, and I definitely think horror fans, in particular horror fans, should go and take a look at this because there's not much else in the way of horror
Yeah.
that
Not
came
yet,
previous
right? Yeah.
that's worth recommending as well, because now that we are getting into October, we are getting a lot more heavy hitters in the spooky realm here. But I think to start everything off, this was a good spark, honestly. So that's why
Yeah.
I think it's a pay for it. Don't watch the first one. Hopefully, Tex
Well,
can say pay for it by chapter 3,
yeah,
right?
well, that's the thing, right? Like, well, I guess we can answer that question before we wrap up here. It's like, can you skip chapter 1? Kind of.
Yeah,
I
I
honestly,
think
I
this
think
one does
kind
a
of, right?
very good job of kind of showing you what you need to see from chapter 1, which
Yeah,
wasn't much. It was just the fact that, hey, we forgot to kill her. That's
yeah,
about it.
and there are moments where like she kind of flashes back to things that happened in part
Yeah.
1. So it's like, oh, honestly, yeah, I think
You kind of, you see it,
you know
so
what?
it works
Okay,
out even better. It
okay,
works out
yeah,
even
like
better. So you get a 2 for 1, if you
yeah,
go see chapter 2.
there are enough context clues here, I think, to kind of balance it out.
This is
I
the
think.
only book that you can literally skip chapter 1 and you'll be fine. And with that, folks, thank you so much for listening and for watching. This is The Morgue, where we dissect the latest and greatest in the world of entertainment. I am your host, Arturo Padilla. With me always is Mr. Nick Valdez. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and follow us on all our socials. And remember, folks, it is a scary world out there, but we are here to walk you through it.